Hey everyone, good day to you. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if this is your first video or first time visiting this channel. I will start with, I do not feel well today at all. I don't know if I'm getting sick from being with a family member for days in a hospital or if I'm having a lupus flare. But I don't feel well, but I felt like this is a really important thing to talk about, really important topic that really kind of hit me hard this week, being with my elderly family member. So before we get started, I've made some notes because I don't feel well and I don't know how well I'm gonna do. Kind of ad hocing, I guess. But disclaimer, in all of my videos, I only speak for myself. I don't speak for any other victims of abuse, any other survivors. I don't speak for, families that I may mention that are in the public eye. I don't speak for them. I don't even know them. I just use them as examples. So when you watch these videos, please know I only speak for myself, and that everybody's experience as a victim or a survivor or a family member, a friend, who in a way are also victims, survivors, that's their individual stories. This is just my experience. I only speak for me. Another thing is the request, though. Please, I say it at the end as well, but I like to say it at the beginning just in case people don't make it to the end of the video. But please like, share, subscribe. Liking tells people that, it's worth watching. So if you feel that way, please feel free to do that. Please share. If you think there's not somebody who needs to see this in your life, I guarantee there is. So please share. I don't get anything off of these videos. I don't monetize these videos. They're literally just my way of being grateful for being able to, getting the opportunity to survive my own abuse, my own domestic violence, intimate partner violence experience. And I just love helping people and giving back and saving lives. So that's why I do this. And then subscribe. So even if this video isn't really for you, there might be others. I have so many that I want to post. So there might be one in the future. And then as you subscribe, it shows up on other feeds, and there might be somebody you don't know that sees it and watches it. So please like, share, subscribe, so that we can raise the awareness and save lives. So this video is the importance of advocacy. Now, I want to make a distinction between the word advocate and the word ally as it relates to this video. So in the world of victims of crime, violent crime, victims in general, there are victims advocates. Victim advocate is a very specific role. So like I had multiple victims advocates in different organizations, with the court, with a domestic violence remediation center that my abuser went to for remediation. I still don't understand that, but I don't think I ever will. But he was unsuccessfully discharged. He failed DV remediation within 6 months. And hospitals will have advocates, they'll have medical advocates, and they'll also have victims advocates. Some places like where I live have them with the police station. They might not be within the police or within law enforcement, but they'll partner with law enforcement to provide these advocates. So they're very, very formal positions. What I'm kind of talking about is more like advocating for self, advocating for others. And so in that regard, I'm going to try to use the word ally because it's not a formal position. It's you showing up for someone or yourself, and you are advocating, but you're not necessarily an advocate, you're an ally. And everyone can be an ally. So that's kind of what that distinction is going to be. And sometimes I use the words interchangeably. I apologize in advance if I do that, but again, I'm not feeling well, so I'm gonna do my best here. So why am I making this video? So this week, I had an elderly family member who was really not doing well, was in extreme pain, had something going on, And so I ended up with my partner going to get her and taking her to the emergency room. And we waited in the emergency room for a really, really long time. And her symptoms were increasingly getting worse. And so, as her ally, as her family member, and in having the knowledge of the medical system, because I call myself the professional patient, I've had like over, I think about like 25 or 26 surgeries. I've been hospitalized for like the strangest stuff. I've literally had doctors say, these things don't happen to like individually to a person, let alone all of these things happening to one person. But I have lupus, I have systemic lupus erythematosus, or however you say it, so SLE. I also have unconfirmed Crohn's. So unconfirmed only because I I can't swallow the pill because the pill camera, whatever. But it's definitely there. So I get sick a lot, or I used to. I've done a lot better, treating at home and being in a less stressful environment. So I know the medical system really, really well, insurance and like what happens in an emergency room. So I'm being her ally and I'm advocating for her to be seen sooner. And then we get taken back, and it's kind of the same thing. Like, what kind of tests does she really need, and what is she actually experiencing? Now, this individual has dementia, early onset Alzheimer's, and so she's already in excruciating pain. She's already struggling with her memory because she's elderly, and so things are kind of getting a little bit mixed up. I like to say her memory is a little bit spicy or creative. So making sure that the providers understand what she's really experiencing and the progression of her symptoms, making sure they understand that yes, she has chronic conditions, but this is an acute experience that she's having. This is acute pain. This is acute numbness, tingling, whatever the symptom is that brought to the emergency room. Yes, there are chronic conditions. Yes, it could be related, but that's not why we're here. We're here to understand why this is happening now. So going through this, and then she ended up being hospitalized. And I spent days, I didn't leave really the hospital, except for to, take little breaks, take a shower, see my children. But she needed me there. She needed me there because she could not advocate for herself at that moment. She would struggle to do so anyway, but especially in this situation, she can't. She's just not able to. So someone has to. And I wanted to be there for her because I had the skill set, I had the capacity to do it. I was still able to work because of the nature of my job. So it was one of those things that it was the right thing to do. What was really eye-opening for me in this experience is, I guess, that I had really, really high expectations of what was going to happen, and I was driving towards this end goal, right? And that end goal ended up not being the right thing to do for her, which is totally fine. I'm all for admitting when I'm wrong, or like I think something and then I'm like, oh, that's actually really not the best thing. But what was not lost on me or anybody else was that driving towards this end goal, even though that's not what actually happened, got us so much information and got us a little bit closer every single time. And I have this application called CoStar, and it's fun, and it goes off of your astrological, like your birth date and time, and you get these fun little messages, and sometimes I would say oftentimes actually, they're pretty spot on. And one of them said, this might not be a direct quote, but one of them said, keep your standards high and your expectations low. And I was like, that's a really, really good way of saying that, because my standards are high. My standards were high in that regard, and at that time, and my standards still are very, very high. I think that's critical to driving forward, to making sure that you're pushing for yourself or someone else, but realizing that expectations, you're not always going to get the end goal that you think you need, and sometimes, a lot of times, that's a blessing. You don't realize it at the time, but also success is not always in these cataclysmic events, right? Like everybody thinks that success is huge. It's like instantaneously big, right? And it's not. A lot of times, I would say most times in my experience, success is little things over time that add up. So, like I said, I did write some notes. So, I get analogies and metaphors confused like a lot. And I've looked it up a million times and I still can't get it. But what I think it's an analogy. Someone check me in the comments, write comments, make fun of me, that's fine. I love it. I love laughing. I think it's hilarious. Life is hilarious. But one of the analogies I used is in terms of money, right? Like in terms of change, coins. So a lot of people have this end goal of $1. All right, so like just picture this. They have an end goal of this dollar, and everybody's dollar looks different, right? They don't all have, I think George Washington's on the dollar, but they don't have, they don't have the same dollar, but it's still their end goal, their ultimate end goal. And you could apply this to all of life. You could apply this to a certain situation. You could just apply this to whatever mission you're on, right? And everyone's got this idea of what their dollar is, and then to them, success working towards that dollar is going to be in 4 increments of quarters, perhaps, right? So they're chasing a quarter, and they're just like chasing a quarter and chasing a quarter and chasing a quarter. But the issue is there are so many pennies along the way that they're not seeing because their single line of focus is on that quarter, and they just got to get those 4 corners, and that's when they're going to get the dollar. Well, here's the thing. If you pick up 100 pennies along the way, you got to your dollar. And oftentimes that dollar or that penny is actually pretty easy to get, right? Like, so you're like all about this quarter. When you surpassed 27 pennies along the way, and you would have been closer had you been open to those pennies, right? And it kind of is like one of those visualizations where you're like, yeah, but that's like a lot of pennies, and like, how am I going to see them? Like, the smallest things can be the biggest things. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but like, have that visualization. So when I talk about like the importance of being an ally and advocating, what am I talking about? So one of the big things is advocating for yourself. Now, I include my children, my pets, and myself kind of all together because we're a family unit. But advocating for self, and if you don't have children, you don't have pets, that's fine too. You're perfectly amazing and everything that's needed just on your own. That's fine. But there is so much worth to you as an individual person. And there's a part actually in the new remake of A Wrinkle in Time, and it has like Mindy Kaling and Oprah Winfrey and oh my gosh, I can see her face. I literally can't think of her name right now. Reese Witherspoon. And other actors, actresses that are just wonderful. And Oprah is talking to the girl, and I can't remember her name right now, but Oprah's talking to the girl, and she says, do you realize how many things had to happen in order to make you? So that's a very short and very simplified like recollection of that. But it's true. So like, everyone is so incredible in their individuality, and that's worth advocating for, and not just in the area of abuse, but in life in general. But in the area of abuse, you have to advocate for yourself. And that's why I bring up the pennies example, because advocating for yourself when you're exhausted and you are literally beaten in all regards, physically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, financially, you are beaten, just like, you're like, oh my God, like, I literally can't advocate for myself right now. Just do the penny. Like, it doesn't have to be a quarter. It doesn't have to be 2 quarters, 3 quarters. It doesn't even have to be the dollar. We're not required to get there suddenly. And that feeling was so real for me. Like, when I got out, I was like, oh my God, Like everything's a quarter or a $50 or a dollar, and like I don't even know what my dollar is, and everyone's expecting a fucking $5 bill from me, or a $10 bill from me, or $20 bill from me. Like literally, financial abuse is a real thing when you're in it and when you're out of it. But excuse me. But I felt so much pressure to get those quarters and to get to that dollar as fast as freaking possible. And it was awful because, truth be told, there were times where I was like, I can't even get the damn penny. Like, I can't even get half a penny. I don't even know what a penny is right now. I can't even get out of bed. I just can't even do any of this. And I talk about in another video about my pets, and that's why I have pets, is because they get me out of bed. My kids get me, I mean, I'm awake before them, but I get up out of bed to be there for my children, to be there for my pets, to take care of them because they depend on me. And then this week, obviously, an elderly family member. But I realized over time, and I think it kind of came together for me this weekend, but I was picking up pennies along the way. I was doing just a little bit. If you can't do it all, just do something. If you need to write 5,000 words and you can only get 5 out, if you can only get 1 out, that's okay. That's okay. That's good enough, because every penny you pick up gets you closer to that quarter and closer to that dollar. And here's the thing, the expectations of others, that's not a you problem, that's a them problem. Here's the other thing though, sometimes the expectations we think others have on us, that's actually not their expectation. We just think that. We impose that on ourselves because that's maybe what our abuser imposed on us. So have that conversation. Why is this your expectation of me? And, you know, honestly, if they truly love you and they're truly there for you and they're an ally to you, that's probably really not their expectation. And they're going to say, what do you need? How can I help you? Right? Advocating for others as an ally to like friends, family, right? Maybe even strangers. Be careful with this. I was talking to a friend that's been supporting another DV survivor and her children, and I forewarned her. Vicarious trauma is a real thing. It is a real freaking thing. In my job, doing investigations for over a decade, the types of investigations I did, I saw some really, really, really terrible things, and it was, in a way, I guess, worth it. I don't know how to say that really. I guess worth it. I don't know the word, but like, it was to go through all of that to bring abusers to justice, which I would find out later is a very odd word, because there's only justice in some regards and then there's no justice in others. But that vicarious trauma was very real. I still can see surveillance videos in my head. I have an incredibly good memory, which is a blessing and a curse. And so I can still see things like dog maulings, like autopsies, like the photographs, different types of animal abuse. As a nationally certified animal cruelty investigator, I reviewed a lot of that kind of stuff. Workplace violence incidents, working in security. So I've seen a lot of really bad things, and that vicarious trauma is real. And especially be very careful if you yourself have experienced trauma, because I feel like it's almost easier to get vicarious trauma. I'm not a mental health professional at all. This is just based on my research and my experience, but it's also very easy to dismiss how much it's affecting you. So I'm not saying don't advocate for others at all. This is actually a video about the opposite. Don't be an ally for others. I'm saying just be really careful and make sure that you give yourself space to process, to make sure that you are preventing that vicarious trauma or treating that vicarious trauma as much as possible. So the importance of advocating for others, when people are at their worst in terms of like they're sick, they're hurting, they're physically injured, they're emotionally distraught, they're psychologically, mentally just not able. That is the most important time for us to step up and help them. So when it comes to like, when it comes to my elderly family member this weekend, she couldn't. She was in pain. She was sick. She, with her memory being ultra creative as a result of these and as a result of the medication she was on, she literally could not advocate for herself. So we stepped in. I stepped in. My partner stepped in. His family stepped in. My friends stepped in. My children stepped in to make sure that we were all supporting. Now, I was basically the front end of the medical side and talking to the doctors directly and challenging the doctors and challenging the results of tests and then which tests needed to be done. That was my job. Other people's role, like my best friend watched my children because I knew they would be safe with her, and she said, "Don't worry, I got you." Was she involved with the medical side of things? No. Could she have been? Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. She's brilliant in advocating, and she knows the medical world as well. Another professional patient. But by her watching my children and saying, "I've got you, they're fine," and my children being great in like keeping me updating, letting me know that they're okay, all of that stuff, that enables that space for me to do what I need to do, right? Then when you talk about my elderly family members, direct family, they were there to make sure that she was drinking water, make sure that she was eating, make sure that she was cleaning and taking care of herself to the best of her ability. And if she couldn't, they were doing it for her, making sure that they were there to answer questions in, my absence. Here's a big one: spending time with her, just spending time with her, getting her to laugh and showing her love. And does any of that have anything to do with medical advocacy? Not directly, no. Like, they're not talking to the doctors. That was me. But I cannot emphasize enough the importance of that. These are pennies. These are pennies that we all pick up, and we're all together going to get to that quarter to that dollar sooner. Now, together. Now, in this instance, the end goal that we were seeking is not what happened. Now, there was a time when we were like, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna happen. This is what's gonna happen," right? But then in talking to the doctors, we realized that it wasn't the right thing to do right now. It would need to be done, but it wasn't the right thing to do right now. And there was this part of me that was a little bit like disappointed, because I was like, damn it, like, we've been going for 2 days like this. You agree and now you disagree. But here's the thing. I took a step back and I said, okay, hold on a second. What pennies are here? What pennies? What pennies can I get from this? Because I can't make someone else do something, right? And in this regard, like, it was not the right thing to do. And I totally agree with the doctors that this was not the right thing to do. And they're the subject matter expert. They're the doctors. They're the surgeons, right? But for me, I needed to at least take the opportunity to try to grab as many pennies as I could, right? So what happened? We got a ton of information. So no, was the end goal what we thought it would be? No. But we got all the necessary information to put together a very, very solid plan for her continued care and the next steps, and the blockers that we were experiencing that we didn't know how to fix. By continuing the conversation and being open to the pennies instead of just trying to get to that quarter, trying to get to that dollar and like forcing it there, we got the information that was necessary, and we also did the right thing for her. We did the most risk-averse thing that we could do for her that would still put her on the path to recovery and feeling better. And then we got kind of a bridge plan in the meantime to make sure that she's comfortable, that she's happy, that she's, her pain is minimized, and we all have a plan going forward, okay? This is like, this is a win. This is a success. It won't feel like it, but it is. Now, yes, this is medical, right? But this can apply to anything. This can apply to anything. For for my experience of the criminal, I call it the criminal injustice world because it just is. It just is. And that's really hard for me to say because I literally spent a decade of my career believing that people were brought to justice for their crimes. And I'm learning that really people who do petty crimes or really, really extreme shit, maybe on this one, they're the ones who get justice served on them. Like people like my abuser. Oh no, I really have to contain the political side, like the side that's going to be politicized. It is true, everything I was about to say, but I'm going to just keep that one in, and eventually it might come out. But if you are, we'll say it this way, if you are in a position of privilege, take that for however you want to take that. If you are in a position of privilege, the chances of that individual actually getting any kind of justice for their crimes is like, I feel like none. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things will change. Maybe these videos will change things. I don't know. But in my situation, my abuser was charged with a misdemeanor after almost beating me to death, literally. And then I worked and worked and worked. I had to get I've talked about this in another video, I had to get my charges from self-defense dismissed and my record sealed. And then I fought, brought forward all the bond violations, brought forward all of the protection order violations, all the court order violations, all of the lies, all of the manipulations. I had proof of all of them. I provided the evidence. I did all of this and got it upcharged to a felony, which it should have been from the beginning, but it got it upcharged to a felony. And then after 18 months of fighting, the district attorney's office decided to dismiss it. And not only dismiss it, but by the law in this state, once it was dismissed, his record was sealed. So nobody's ever really, except for through these videos and, people finding out, other ways, nobody is ever going to be able to look up and see what this individual is and what this individual is capable of. Now, is there a part of me that is angry about that? Oh yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. Like, I think it's complete and utter bullshit. But what are the pennies here? Okay, so I didn't get the dollar. Honestly, there is no true justice in a courtroom anyway. There's just not, because no matter what, he would not serve the amount of time that he took from me. He took from my daughter, he took from my son, he took from my family, he took from my friends, he took from the community. He literally, that would be forever, right? And like, that's never going to happen in our system. But along the way, I learned so much. I learned so much. And that not only helped me see reality, I guess, and it was frustrating. It was so frustrating, but I had to stay focused on, okay, what am I getting out of this right now? Like, what pennies can I pick up from this right now? How can I use those? And all of that experience for 18 months, even though I didn't get that justice in a courtroom, which again, when your existence is in the hands of politicians and people who make money off numbers, like, you're not really going to get anything. But I learned so much, and now I can make these videos, and now I can help others, and I've been able to work a different case for myself in a different state with what I have learned and the understanding that I have. And so it enables me to be a better ally for others, and that's how we enact change, right? When you look at, I mentioned this in another video, again, I don't know this family, but the Gabby Petito's family, the changes that they're enacting as a result of what she experienced in her death, those are pennies that add up to $1, because her death, it's not in vain. Same thing with Nicole Brown. Refused to use her last name, her legal last name, because it's her abuser's name, but Nicole Brown. What her family did after her death saves lives. And so that's so critical. They took the pennies they could take, turned those into quarters, better than quarters, and then they're still driving forward, right? So it's not in vain if you don't get the end goal you expected or wanted right away. Look back and say, okay, why did it happen this way? What did I get from this? What can I get from this? Even if it's just something learned. There's a football show on Netflix. I was told this by someone. I didn't see it myself, but apparently there was a coach for, I think, the Cardinals, maybe. And he said, instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? Try to shift, reframe, psychology term from therapy, reframe, why is this happening for me? Now, it seems like toxic positivity, right? But like, it's really not, because at the end of the day, you can't change the outcome. You can't necessarily change what's happened, especially if other people are making choices for you. But what you can do is frame it in a way that benefits you. And at the end of the day, if you can't change it and you're reframing it to a point where it benefits you and you feel better as a result and you're able to become a better form of yourself as a result, is it really wrong? Is it really toxic? I don't think so. Toxic positivity to me is something I've experienced a lot, and I get, in a way, this should really go into the What People Say series that I have, or playlist, but it's like, you know, to me, you won because you survived. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but like, when I'm, really struggling with something and someone goes, well, you're really the one who won because you survived. It's hard. It's a hard one because they're not wrong, but it's like, survival is very difficult. Being a survivor, I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. It's not like, I think people think that like when you survive, you kind of just like get out of it and you're like, oh my God, I'm alive. And like, I get to have this life and I get to like do all of these things and da da da. No. Being a survivor is really, really hard, especially with systems that protect the abusers and support the abusers. Again, I literally proved that I had been abused in like all regard, in all ways, financially, da 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 da. And because of the way the divorce law is written, I have to pay an incredible amount of abuser support every month. And 50% of everything literally could track that I had paid for everything for years and years and years. And I still had to basically sign off on giving 50% of everything I had done, and now paying abuser support because he was intentionally underemployed to create the biggest wage gap possible. But it's so black and white. The law is so black and white that even with everything, the law states 50-50, that you literally put everything into a spreadsheet to calculate it. So it doesn't matter that I was abused for 10 years. It doesn't matter that my children were abused. I am still having to support this individual financially for the next 3 years. It's dumbfounding, but that's the truth. So it's still worth it. Let me really be clear on that. It is still worth it. It is still so worth it. Like, I can't even begin to express how worth it is to leave. It's money. Money comes and goes. My life, my happiness, the lives and happiness and futures of my children, I would pay every penny I've ever made my entire freaking life and more. You can't put a price on that. It's still bullshit. But the lessons that I've learned along the way and all those pennies that I've picked up along the way, it was all just worth it to keep fighting and to keep advocating for myself, to keep accepting the allies I had in my life. And here's the thing, sometimes being an ally and advocating is literally just to do what's right. So one of the things that I said, one of the, like, because I was just ridiculous, the whole thing was ridiculous, but I was charged, right? I was charged with crimes because I acted in self-defense. However, during that, even though they could see it, they just wanted to get it done. You know, I feel like I'm going to have a series, like a playlist that's like a go F yourself playlist. And there are people in, you know, that playlist, like the DA's office. This one that I had to work with. I worked. They were just there and really didn't do anything. But when we talk about like that whole situation, their thing was offer me a plea that I would accept and then move on. And I told my attorney, I would rather go to jail for protecting myself and my child than ever accept a plea and admit that I did something or take ownership for something that I did not do. I acted in self-defense. I did the right thing for myself and my child, and I will never say that I did not do that by accepting a plea deal just because someone doesn't want to do their job. No. So another part of that, though, when I finally got to speak to my advocate at the court, who literally is just an incredible human being. Like, she's like a hero. She's my hero. She's one of my heroes. You know, the woman who saved my life. My hero. My advocate at the court. My hero. You know, other people in my life. I have so many heroes at this point, and she's one of them. And she was the first person actually to call me and say, I believe you. Now, why do I mention that? That penny, we didn't ultimately get what we were going for. Like, she wanted justice too. That's why she's an advocate. We didn't get it. But that moment of hearing that from someone involved in the system, I believe you. It's very clear. She said, I saw the pictures. I've seen the body cam. I've seen. It is so obvious what happened here, and I believe you. And those pennies that she gave me was worth it all, like in the sense of all the fighting to seek justice, because it gave me hope that not everybody was horrible, right? And that bit of hope pushed me forward, drove me forward. The other thing that drove me forward, and I said this to her so many times, and we started saying it to each other, is I fight for what's right. I'm never going to get justice. I'm never going to get that decade back, ever. And I'm still fighting it, and I'm going to be probably. But I don't fight just for myself. I fight for all the victims that ever were, the victims that are today, and the victims that will be. And my goal is to figure out how effed this system is, find the breaks, and fix them so that we turn victims into survivors. And that is a huge driving force for me to be an ally and to advocate for myself, my children, my family, my friends, strangers, people I don't even know, people watching this video who have no idea who the hell I am and what I've experienced. I fight for you. I fight for your family member, your friend, your loved one. I fight for them too, because I fight for what's right. And allowing abusers to continue to get away with this shit is not right. And I'm not going to give up until there is true change to protect others. And I'm literally never going to stop being an ally and advocating for that. So I guess to sum it all up, if you will, and like I said, I have my notes here, but have your standards high and your expectations low. Does that mean like just accept constant defeat and just like, oh, finally just give up? No, defeat is oftentimes a win. It just doesn't look that way. So keep your standards high, right? Like, to me, I'm going to save everybody. Now, is that likely? No. But that's why the expectations are low, because the pain of disappointment is really, really hard. I didn't record a video for like 9 days, and I had this moment where I was like, I needed to take time for my family. I needed to take time for myself. I don't feel well. I need to take time to make sure that like I'm not getting super sick with having an autoimmune disease. But I had this moment where I was like, every delay I have, every moment that I let pass without doing something, and I literally said it like this: someone dies and it's my fault. Not a fact. Not a fact whatsoever. In my mind, I was so disappointed in myself because I do have a voice. I do have the knowledge. I do have the experience. And for me, it is an immense responsibility to do something with that to save others. But here's the thing. My partner told me, he goes, it is not your fault. Nope, that's not your fault. That is the abuser. That is the abuser making that decision on his or her own accord to hurt another person. And you need to take care of yourself. Self-aid before buddy aid. Put your mask on a plane before you put somebody else's mask on, because if you're not at your best or even close, you're not going to be any good to anybody else, and more people will lose. And I was like, okay, right? So reframing. That's what you kind of have to do. But that pain and disappointment is really there. So have your standards high and drive, but just realize that it's okay if you don't reach that. That might not have been the right end goal anyway, and it's okay to course correct or adjust your expectations along the way. Realizing success doesn't usually look the way we thought it would. We talked about this. Pennies instead of quarters. Sometimes we think that what we want or need in the end is that's it, right? But there are so many possibilities in life. There are so many levels of gray that we sometimes exist in such a black and white world that we don't see that this shade of gray over here was actually a lot better for us, but we missed it because we were trying to get over there. So being open to success looking different, and success being a lot of little things adding up instead of one ginormous thing. Little things matter. Actually, funny, I have a bee on my tattoo, and I started getting this sleeve. Jeez, I don't even remember. I think I've had it maybe like 9 years ago. I started getting it, and I get asked about the bee a lot, and I tell people the bee represents how critically important the small things in life are. Our entire existence wouldn't be here if it weren't for bacteria, right? Like, you can't see it unless it's a bunch of them, but the bacteria that's on your skin, that's in your gut, that keeps you alive, right? Like, you need that. Bees. Without bees, we would all perish, everything, because bees pollinate the plants, which plants are then eaten by herbivores or omnivores or whatever, and then those are eaten by the carnivores, and then like we eat, right? So really, yes, it starts with plants, which are also highly supported by bacteria and mycorrhizae fungi and whatever, but without bees, like, we'd be really screwed, right? So we underestimate the power of the small things in life a lot, because our entire existence is in this like super huge grand scale. Like, you're only successful if you make a shit ton of money. You're only successful if you have this like huge title. You're only successful if you have like 500 acronyms after your name, and nobody knows what those acronyms mean anyway, to be very clear. Like, if somebody knows all of those, like, I feel like they need a hobby. But whatever, that's how we see life, is like everything is on a grand scale. Everything is huge. It's not. All those small things add up. All of those small things. And if you're not Elon Musk or, well, I can't even remember the guy, Amazon guy's name, Jeff Bezos or something, with his like $50 million yacht, who cares? Like, I don't know these people, but I'm just going to generalize that the vast majority of people at that level or close, they're miserable. So take the small wins where you can get them and be satisfied, because they matter. Okay, here's a good one. This is what I tell my kids all the time. This is what I tell myself as well. Accepting that every no is one step closer to yes. Now, I think a lot of us have heard that story about Thomas Edison, and how when he was like inventing the long-lasting light bulb or whatever, he failed like over 1,000 times or something. We hear this, right? That strength comes from adversity, and that the most successful people have really, like a lot of really successful people have had incredibly traumatic and difficult lives. And I 100% see why, because if you have not dealt with adversity, your ability to see things holistically and be very successful aren't really that great because you can't, like, you literally visually can't see it. Your lens is not the same. And so you're not able to see opportunities because you haven't necessarily seen failure. Now, does that mean that you're always, doomed to, like, you're doomed in life? No, but that's kind of why I think people who have dealt with such adversity are so successful. There's also, like, socially acceptable trauma responses that I just kind of was learning about the other day, but like overworking, overachieving as a trauma response, that's a real thing. But a big thing for successful people, even if they haven't experienced trauma, is that they don't see no as no. They see no as one step closer to yes, or they see no as a roadblock that then you have to go over, under, around, through, and you have to think creatively and go into that gray space to come up with a new plan or a new path to get to yes, right? And again, yes doesn't always look like what we think it should look like. So so every no is one step closer to yes. And when you start hearing no a lot, all that is the universe putting you on the path to the yes that you're supposed to have. And so be open to it, even if it's painful, especially if it's painful, because the greatest rewards, in my experience, come from the greatest pains. Take the little wins I've talked about a lot. And then just, again, toxic positivity. Other people do it to other people. People do it to themselves. Abuse survivors, gaslighting of yourself is a real thing. Like, oh, I'm just making this a huge deal. It's not a huge deal. If it feels like a huge deal to you, then it is. And if it's not a huge deal to everyone else, well, that's their thing. Like, whatever's a huge deal to them may not be a huge deal to you, and vice versa. If you look at relationships, for instance, I was just having this conversation, I'm at the hospital actually, but what in a relationship between two people, what may be super painful for one is not going to be the same thing for the other. So what may be super painful for one of the partners is their partner cheating on them. Okay. Yeah, that would suck, right? But what might actually be more painful for this other person is them, their partner getting rid of something that meant a lot to them, right? This person might actually feel like they would have rather their partner cheated on them than gotten rid of that super, super valuable item, or said that thing that really hurt them, or whatever it may be, brought up a memory that really hurt them. So it's not all the same for everybody. And so if you have that feeling where you're like, oh man, like, this isn't really a big deal, this really shouldn't be bothering me that much, that's not for anybody to judge. It's not even really for you to judge, because at the end of the day, you're feeling it, and your mind, your subconscious mind, your heart, your soul, it feels it. So explore that and be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And I will tell you, one of the best things you can say, from my experience, if you are an ally for someone, you are advocating for someone, and they're coming to you, don't try to solve it in that moment. You can help them, but say, how can I help you? When it comes to what you may say besides how can I help you, my partner just said this to me the other night. He said, I really want to solve this right now. I really want to solve this right now, but I don't think that's what you need. I don't think that's what you want. I don't think that's going to provide any value. He said, so all I'm going to do is say, I understand what you're saying, and I am understanding of why that would be so painful, and I'm here for you. Like, to me, that was like the best response, because when I get like, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, like, I'm already overwhelmed. I'm already emotionally shot. That's why I'm coming to you. I don't need a download of all the things that you would do different, because you don't know either. You aren't me. And when that happens, it actually makes me not want to talk anymore to anybody, because I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks. It kind of goes back to that, you should really take care of yourself. Yeah, let me get right on that. Like, I haven't taken care of myself for like however long I've been in this abusive marriage because I've been having to just survive and take care of, this adult child. But yeah, I'll do that. So, toxic positivity, be careful if that's coming at you, and feel, get to that point where you can say, that's really not helping me right now. I wish, I would really like for you to stop. That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to endure that. I thank you for trying to help, but that's really not what I need right now. And that's really honestly making me feel worse. Can you please stop? Now, on the flip side of things, as the ally that's advocating or that's trying to help somebody, please take a step back and think before you speak. Please take a step back and consider if your words are going to put pressure on that person, even if your intent is so pure. In that moment, it's probably not a good idea. Take a step back and say, okay, how can I help you? Or, I know that you don't want to talk about like how to solve this right now, but I'm here for you when you're ready. Great. They know you're there. And then when they come to you and they ask for help, be there. That's your opportunity to really, really step in. So a lot of that to say, I'm trying to give insight for both sides of advocating for self, advocating for others, what it's like to be on the receiving end as a survivor, what it's like to be on the giving end as a survivor, and as somebody who will literally help anyone and everyone I can, unfortunately, even to my detriment. But advocating, being an ally is so incredibly critical. And just, again, realize that not every win is going to look like we thought, and not every win is going to be some, supernova event. It can be the tiniest thing, and it can make the biggest difference. So I thank you if you stayed till the end of this video. Please, again, like, share, subscribe, write comments. I do reply to comments. So if you have questions, you have ideas for videos, you have things you want to hear about, it will help guide me on like what's really needed. And that feedback is super critical. So again, I thank you for being here. I thank you for staying till the end of this video, and let's save some lives together. Bye-bye.